Is having a boyfriend embarrassing? For some, this sounds ridiculous. But recently, this question has taken over my entire feed after an article questioned how we view relationships online. Because even in a culture built around relationship goals, showing your boyfriend has become something to hide, even make fun of. So, how did we get here? From public courtship and handwritten love letters to soft launching your boyfriend on Instagram.
Is having a boyfriend embarrassing?
Is having a boyfriend embarrassing now?
In this article, Shantae Joseph talks about how there's nothing she hates more than following someone for fun, only for their content to become my boyfriendified suddenly. She argues that it is, quote, the result of women wanting to straddle two worlds, one where they can receive social benefits of having a partner, but also not appear so boyfriend obsessed that they come across as quite culturally loserish. Speaking of society, let's go back, before love was a choice, but a currency. For centuries, courtship wasn't about compatibility. It was an act of survival. Emily Brand says, the purpose of upper-class marriage was to forge an alliance beneficial to both families, whether that meant through the acquisition of titles, fortunes, or the influential contacts of the new in-laws. Influenced by the rituals of medieval courtly love, expressions of devotion were made through poetry and music. One 1670s matrimonial guide stated, modesty in a woman is required, boldness in a man. Okay. The later 18th century saw a huge shift as marriage became linked to affection rather than alliance. This is our famous golden age of romance, like Jane Austen and Bridgerton.
And the object of all my desires.
It always comes back to Bridgerton. Here it was the men making the first move to show interest, while women had to wait and be pursued.
You've always amused me, Miss Bridgerton, ever since I was a schoolboy and you were.
Oh, but 5?
However, Holloway says, quote, one of the most important tools at a young lady's disposal during courtship was the power of refusal. To discourage a gentleman's advances, decline to dance with him, refuse to embark in correspondence with him, and turn down any proposal of marriage. Young women, probably more than men, enjoyed this process of courtship because it gave them all the power. The selection of a husband was the most important decision you could make as a woman. I mean, courting probably empowered young women. They decided who they wanted to accept or reject, and some wielded their power ruthlessly.
I would rather die.
There's a letter written from Eliza Ambler to Mildred Smith in February of 1785, where she says, just at this moment are at my entire disposal 2 of the very smartest beaux this country can boast of. There is much speculation going on as to the preference I shall give, yet to my own amusement do I intend to leave these speculating genius to their own conjectures, till I have made up my mind. I feel like I should have read that in like a British accent. To their own conjectures, till I have made up my mind. Did you like that? That was really bad. Writing letters was a crucial aspect of Regency courtship. Quote, men had to formally request a correspondence, and women accepted or declined, entering a more serious stage. Accepting signaled that a couple was on the road to engagement. My betrothed! What was written in these letters, you might ask? Holloway says, women's letters are marked by their modesty and reserve. In contrast, men's letters ruminated at enormous length about the nature of love, the depth of their feeling, and many included poems.
Not a man of poetry.
Men's correspondence had to be much more effusive because it was their responsibility to secure a match. Although, this is literally insane. These letters were passed around family members and friends. Can you imagine, like, writing your heart out in a letter, knowing that it was going to be, like, broadcasted out to the entire family, and it was kind of the family's decision whether you got to continue courting or not? Hey, that stress level is insane. But I guess it worked out. Because in the 19th century, romance blossomed in American culture. Both men and women were encouraged to express their most intimate thoughts in letters. There were even love letter manuals, which had sample love letter language for those who weren't naturally adept at self-expression. I guess this would be like a hallmark for Regency era times, which kind of sounds cool, not gonna lie. Elizabeth Barrett published her famous love poems she composed to her future husband, Robert Browning, saying, "How do I love thee? Let me count the ways." Although I will note that although women technically held the power during the courting phase, once they were married, the scales of power flipped immediately. But not everyone played along. What exactly is a spinster? Well, Merriam-Webster defines it as, quote, an unmarried woman, and especially one past the common age for marrying.
Spinsters do not need chaperones.
You are not a spinster.
I'm in my 3rd year on the marriage mark with no prospects to show for it. What would you call that?
Even though the technical definition is a female spinner, which was a common occupation during the Middle Ages, although modern reference to the term implies a much more derogatory definition and points at stereotypes of women who are too old, too unattractive, repressed, and sexually undesirable, and therefore husband and childless. Think crazy cat lady. The term spinster actually became an official term in legal documents, as many people in the Middle Ages used their occupation as their surname, which is why we still have names like Smith, Potter, Thatcher, Baker, etc. However, because being a spinster by occupation was also associated with being an unmarried woman, by the 17th century, the term spinster was used on legal documents simply to mean an unmarried woman. Actually, it wasn't until 2005 that the term spinster and bachelor stopped being used in England and Wales to describe unmarried people on legal documents. 2005! Which, crazy enough, if you think about the term spinster and bachelor, what are the connotations between the two? I don't think I've ever heard of an eligible spinster. Just saying. This is so cool. Spinsters were actually considered, quote, high-minded, upstanding pillars of the community, and eventually became cultural icons of their own. They were even hired because they were single, not despite it. It wasn't until these ideas of social hygiene and the science of sexuality that gained a lot of popularity at the turn of the 20th century that society turned on spinsters. They accused them of repressing desire, or worse, being unnatural. Blount writes, spinsters were increasingly viewed as, quote, standing outside their conventional gender roles as procreating women. Hey, ew. Whatever these women were or were not, I found this magazine called Tidbits from 1889 where they asked Victorian era spinsters why they were single and shunned marriage, and these are some of my favorite answers. Miss Emmeline Lawrence. Because men, like three-cornered tarts, are deceitful. They are very pleasing to the eye, but on closer acquaintanceship prove hollow and stale, consisting chiefly of puff, with a minimum of sweetness and an unconquerable propensity to disagree with one. Yeah. And Miss Sparrow, because I do not care to enlarge my menagerie of pets, and I find the animal man less docile than a dog, less affectionate than a cat, and less amusing than a monkey. Lastly, Miss Florence Watts. Because I have other professions open to me in which the hours are shorter, the work more agreeable, and the pay possibly better. I hope these women know that I'm obsessed with them. Zusha Berend writes how women deliberately chose to refuse marriage because it didn't meet the high standards or would have been a detriment to their already established service work. They wanted the best or none, so they chose alternatives instead. Much like what we're choosing today. The modern development of instant messaging and dating apps have opened to what Emily Brand calls an unlimited pool of potential suitors, which often reduces the earliest stage of romantic correspondence to a swipe right and a brief exchange of messages. We no longer live in an age where women are the prizes to be caught, and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, we're gonna get into it, but honestly, I think this is where we kind of went wrong and what might be missing.
Rather seems to be society's flaw, not a woman's.
I'm going to preface the rest of this video by saying this is all super nuanced, and no, not everyone's going to agree, and we should have that discussion down below. But I just want to make that very clear. I'm not speaking for everyone and everything. Okay, I don't think there's a drive for men to want to court us anymore. Now, I don't know if this is because men have gotten lazy, or if the feminism movement fighting for equality meant that courting and chivalry kind of had to die with it. I think the only thing we kind of still got going for us is that in high school, hopefully we get asked to prom, and then later when we're adults, get proposed to and get engaged. I do think that men literally do not try to be good partners anymore, and women are tired for begging for the bare minimum.
And I thought you gentlemen capable of worthwhile conversation. How sad both of our hopes were dashed.
Going back to Shantae's article, she talked about posts like, quote, boyfriends are out of style, and they won't come back in until they start acting right. And they're relatable for a reason. As Shantae points out, a lot of these women making the post are already in hetero relationships. She talks about how even partnered women will lament men and heterosexuality, partly in solidarity with other women, but also because it is now fundamentally uncool to be a boyfriend girl. Which, this is me. This is literally me. I hate to break the news to everyone, but I do indeed have a boyfriend. Yet, I am also a man hater. There is part of me that would also feel guilty for sharing my partner constantly, especially when we know the dating landscape is really bad at the moment. I wouldn't want to be boastful. Which is honestly kind of my sentiment too. I know how hard it is out there in the dating landscape. I know how shitty men are and how hopeless single women are feeling. And I know and I understand that my boyfriend is one of the very rare anomalies of good men who want to be good partners. I think many women would agree with my statement that I don't need a boyfriend. Boyfriends are there to enhance my life, not complete it. I live with my boyfriend now, but everything I've done and accomplished, I did and could do single. I don't post my boyfriend on social media, and that's not because I'm embarrassed of him or embarrassed to say or show that I have a boyfriend. I will be honest and say that I am a reformed pick-me-girl, and I am very proud that I no longer center myself around men for male acceptance and validation. Okay? I will admit that. And I think that's how I feel about this article is like, I'm not embarrassed to say that I have a boyfriend. It's just not the first, second, or even third thing you should know about me when you meet me. Not to get too sappy, but I am in the healthiest, most loving relationship I have ever thought would be possible. But I don't feel the need to prove it on social media. The thing is, love isn't embarrassing, but vying for public validation is. Anyway, if you enjoy video essays and history and living out aesthetics, you know what to do. Follow me and join the party because you never know where I'm going next. Love you, bye!